This is the KTLA 5 News at 4. Thank you for watching. I'm Samantha Cortese.
And I'm John Finolio. We're following breaking news outside of Knott's Berry Farm, where people have been stuck on a ride for hours.
Oh, Gil Lavis, you're in Sky 5 with details. What's going on now?
Wow, Sam and John, you're looking at Knott's Berry Farm here. This is the Soul Spin Ride. This is in the Fiesta Village section of Knott's Berry Farm. Around 2 o'clock is when this ride got stuck. You can see the riders still seated in those arms on this ride. It does go around and around, but somehow it got stuck and they were not able to get it to operate again. You can see all the people sitting in place. Some people on their side here. It looks like some facing the other direction here, and even more so on that side of the ride itself. Now workers are trying to get the riders off using this crane here. You can see an operator here coming up to the crane. They're going to try to offload each one of those ride goers one by one. It's time consuming and it's already been going on since 2, so going on the second hour of this problem here with this ride, having people stuck on this ride now for 2 hours. And who knows how long it's going to take. Orange County Fire Authority, we believe, are on scene and evaluating the situation. It's unclear if anyone has been hurt on this ride. But again, this is the Soul Spin Ride at Knott's Berry Farm, stuck now for 2 hours. That's the latest overhead up in Sky 5. I'll send it back to you in the studio.
Gil, thanks. I just wanted to mention these riders are stuck 6 stories in the air. For if you were wondering, 6 stories up, dangling feet, obviously. They're free spinning gondolas.
Exhaust mic.
Yeah, so these they're clicked in obviously individually, but these people will spin individually in each arm of the ride, go up 6 stories, and I'm just happy none of them are upside down.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, you can see some of them are certainly hanging sideways. Gil, we see the cherry picker there. It looks like they're trying to offload some of those passengers. Where is the fire department? Where are first responders?
Find your perfect stay.
Where are first responders? All right, we may not have Gil's audio right there, but again, you see it looks like crews from the park trying to offload some of those passengers. Gil, if you can hear us, we know they're trying to offload some of those passengers. Have they gotten anybody off? Also, where are first responders? Where's the fire department at this time?
You know, John, it's unclear if they got anybody off. There's a couple of empty seats on one of the arms of that ride, several of the arms, I should say. We did see a couple of firefighters walking around here. I believe a couple of them on the ground. We haven't seen their fire trucks yet that have responded, but we understand Orange County Fire Authority is aware of the situation, and they're going to have to evaluate these people. Some of them, like you said, stuck up so high, but look at these guys here. They are sideways on this ride. It's been like that for 2 hours.
Brutal.
Very uncomfortable. These people here, they look like they're pretty comfortable sitting, upright for the most part, but as the ride goes around, these people on this arm, again, sideways, it's got to be brutal. Got someone waving their arm there.
Yeah, Gil, there's a little kid waving at you there.
Release it.
Keeps looking up and waving at
it's
the
unbelievable.
chopper, and that one's waving at someone else.
Oh man, but this is a major rescue operation. If they can't start getting those folks off this ride quickly, we see some empty seats right there, but no indication yet that anybody has been taken off this ride safely. And again, as you mentioned, Sam, they're suspended some 6 stories in the air. It's going to be an awfully slow process using that one cherry picker to get all those folks off that ride.
If any of these kids called in sick today, they're getting found out right now.
Yeah.
2 o'clock on a Monday.
True.
The big advertisement for this ride is that each arm spins 360, and each individual will get a different experience every time they ride the ride. So it just sounds like it was a thrill seeker's paradise until it wasn't. Yikes.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. You can see these people just sideways there for all this time. You would think that they might try to get the lower arms there up, but it looks like at this point you might have an engineer that's looking at the ride trying to figure out why it became stuck. So we'll see if they decide to use that cherry picker to get those people off, or if they're just trying to get the ride to work.
You can imagine there's going to be some lawsuits filed after something like this. It's certainly a liability for the park, and if you're one of those riders up there, well, you might have a legal bone to pick after all is said and done, especially if they can't get these folks off by the time night falls. I mean, it's cold, and surely people have to use the restroom. And
yeah, you think about the elements, really.
And hopefully no medical issues either being suspended, going on now at least 2+ hours. All these folks stuck on this ride at Knott's Berry Farm.
And you have to hope they're able to at least maybe get their phone out of their pocket to let mom know why they aren't home yet, or let the chaperone know what's going on. The kids seem to be in good spirits, but I know Laz is chomping at the bit to talk about insurance and liability in a situation like this. I imagine you walk past a sign with very small font every time you get on one of these rides where they say, hey, if something happens, this is on you. We're not liable for this.
Sure, there's a hold harmless anytime you go into the park itself, but that's a long time to be stuck in the air. Laz?
Well, John, you just brought up the question of liability in a situation like this. And what this comes down to is what's basically on the back of the ticket when you buy it. Almost all theme parks are going to try and limit their liability one way or another, especially in today's age of the kind of things you might see at Magic Mountain, which are throwing you this way and that way. And you look at them and you think, who does that? Is that safe? Generally speaking, yes, they're safe, but what you're looking at here is your worst case scenario, and especially involves multiple people. And as you just noted, it seems to invite a class action lawsuit. The question is, how much of a shield does a theme park have when things go awry? And I would argue that whatever liability waiver they've built into their tickets, that they've built into the structure, doesn't apply when a ride goes like this and you're stuck for 2 hours. There isn't a judge in the world who's going to say, oh, well, that's no big deal. It's clearly a big deal. So you've got to wonder at this point what Knott's legal team is now thinking about.
Yeah.
I wonder why the ride malfunctioned, what actually went down. I guess we'll find that out later. And the people who are already filling out lawsuits will have to get to the bottom of that too. If that was operator error, some sort of electrical problem, either way, these poor people are stuck sideways for 2.5 hours. And you wonder, do they have to use a restroom? Are they hungry?
Sure.
Moreover, being on your side like that can't be good for an extended period as well, as all the blood gathers on one side of your body and leaves the other. I also am a little bit surprised that they've only got one cherry picker out there. You would think that they would have multiple devices out, trying to move as fast as you can. And from a legal point of view, that's going to be one of the issues here is, did Knott's move expeditiously enough to get the people off the ride? Because obviously, when things go wrong, you expect the theme park to rise to the challenge and deal with it, and they clearly are here, but have they done that in an effective manner, or have they been dawdling a little bit for whatever reason and potentially endangering their customers? That's the question that lawyers would have to tee off on, and also it's the question that many settlements would then center on.
Sure, and you wonder, can the fire department even get into that location with their ladder trucks to try and offload those folks if and when it becomes time to get the fire department in there? I mean, it looks like there is enough space to maneuver that a truck possibly could get through, a big ladder truck, to start getting people off. And of course, those are experienced rescuers. And right now they've got this one cherry picker, it appears, trying to either repair the ride or offload some of these folks, but an awfully long time to be suspended 6 stories in the air.
I imagine they would want to get this to the position where you load onto the ride, because if you are trying to loosen or undo each shoulder restraint, it's going to get difficult with the people who are on their side 6 feet in the air, trying to get them off safely into the cherry picker if they're at that angle. So you'd think they're trying to get the ride back down to the loading position. But
certainly strap them into some kind of harness or safety tether so that, obviously you don't want anybody to fall. But yeah, I mean, this looks like it would be a heavy rescue operation. And I know Gil said that they saw some fire department personnel walking around and that OC Fire's aware of the situation, but we certainly don't see those ladder trucks up there right now. So,
but this is a cautionary tale for all theme parks, because as we've been seeing, rides are getting more and more scary. They're getting more and more potentially dangerous, or at least giving the perception of being dangerous. And when they do that, well, that just ratchets up the stakes for when things go wrong. These are just machines after all, and machines do break down. And you don't want that to happen, obviously, when people's lives are on the line. But I think this is the kind of thing that many theme parks, maybe not the family-friendly Disney type, but more the ones that are targeting teens, like, say, again, Magic Mountain, Knott's Berry Farm, they need to think about, all right, what do we do in these scenarios and how can we rise to that challenge? I'm surprised that there isn't a fleet of cherry pickers that can be dispatched in a situation like this. And I'm also thinking about some of the rides, again, at Magic Mountain where you're upside down, where you're in a corkscrew, when you're in a complete loop. Getting people out of those situations would strike me as being just logistically very, very difficult, but at the same time, the sort of thing that you have to have a plan B and a plan C for when these kind of things happen, especially now, because in about an hour, it's going to be dark.
Right.
And that's also going to impact this.
Laz, we're going to loop Gil Levis back in here because it looks like they're using some sort of
winch
system and pulley to get the ride back down.
Yeah, exactly, Sam and John and David. You can see how the workers came up here and hooked up 2 lines there to the center section of the ride, and they brought those lines back down. Now they're winching it. It looks like it's starting to turn slowly, so manually turning the ride itself. It's unclear like what position it's going to take to get these riders down. You can see where the base of the ride starts, but you got a couple of workers here working those lines here, one here and then 2 other guys here. And it is connected to the ride up in the middle there. That's what they were doing just a little while ago. But still now, these people have turned completely on their side. So hopefully this means it's the beginning of the end to get these people off.
Yeah, we hope so.
Yeah, and I hope if there are any little nervous kids on that ride, there's, somebody giving them words of encouragement. It's stuck up there for 2.5 hours. They seem to be waving and in good spirits, but you never know.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like anybody's in
distress.
Yeah, it doesn't look like anybody's in distress. But again, as Laz mentioned, it's going to get dark soon. It's going to get cold, and they've got to start getting these folks off that ride or get this ride operating. Otherwise, you've got a much bigger potential emergency on your hands.
So, Laz, what happens here? Do they offer them a free annual pass?
Right.
Or what do they do to?
Oh, they will try.
This
The
situation.
smart play in a situation like this is you're going to offer perks and bennies to try and make sure that there isn't a lawsuit coming down the road, or having offered the bennies, if there is a lawsuit, then you're able to tell the court, yeah, but we did offer X, Y, and Z, and therefore we're not wholly culpable here, and we're good actors in this situation. Nevertheless, you can imagine there are injury attorneys watching this right now on KTLA thinking, wow, this is cool.
Yeah, chomping at the bit, no less.
No kidding. Also, I do want to point out, that's a concrete foundation you're looking at there, and that also raises the stakes as well, because the last thing you want is obviously somebody tumbling out of that thing and falling to that.
I'm just surprised that we don't see more rescue personnel beneath the ride, around the ride, more cherry pickers with experienced rescuers trying to get these folks off or trying to get this ride going again.
To that point, I wonder if the shoulder straps aren't coming up, and there's no way to get them off because they can't get out of the shoulder restraint.
Right.
Also, you can see that the other rides nearby are not moving, and we haven't seen any crowds in the periphery, and that makes me wonder, have they closed the park? Have they cordoned off this part of the park to keep the other guests away? It seems like this is going to have a material impact on Knott's, at least for today, and therefore any investor in this company is thinking, uh-oh, as well.
Yeah, it looks like a pretty empty park with the exception of all those people stuck in the air on this ride going on now, 2.5 hours. Gil, you said that it looked like the arm was turning a little bit. Is the ride itself moving ever so slowly?
It's hard to say if it's going downward, but the ride looks like it's spun counterclockwise because this arm itself was a little bit higher up. It wasn't quite, these people weren't quite on their side, but now they are. And you can see how they moved some of these 2 lines here. They had one of the lines at this base point. They moved that line over here to this base point here, and they're working it from there. So it appears that they have those manually operated devices there and those anchor points to use it to manually move the ride back into its position, which I believe is directly on this center pad of the ride itself. So it looks like it has moved. It looks like maybe the arm is starting to come towards us, and then maybe once they get it directly over the cement, they're going to be able to turn it.
A couple answers to some questions here. Orange County Fire Authority said that they are not handling this. Knott's is handling it on its own.
Okay.
A battalion chief is on the way as of about 45 minutes ago, but Orange County Fire Authority not handling this. And Knott's, in a statement, said at approximately 2 p.m., the Soul Spin ride experienced technical difficulties, causing the ride to stop. We are currently working to safely evacuate guests. That was 2 hours, 15 minutes ago. So these people are still hanging on there. Not really much else they can do. Like we said, hopefully they can reach down into their pockets and grab their phones or something to reach their family and friends.
The focus on anchoring that arm suggests that one of the reasons they've gone so slowly in bringing people off is that there was a danger of this thing continuing to move one way or another, thus getting out of control of the rescuers and potentially endangering people even further. So the fact that they seem to be focused on anchoring it right now as opposed to getting people out of the seats suggests to me that they still don't have a complete control over the apparatus. And until they have that, they're reluctant to raise those shoulder bars to get people off the thing. And that also raises a question for me about how much control Knott's has at this point. I'm struck by the lack of urgency that I'm seeing in these pictures.
That's what I'm thinking. You know what I mean? Obviously, the mechanics who work on these rides are the best people equipped to repair them and know how to operate them, especially in a situation like this. But when it comes to what would otherwise be a heavy rescue situation, that's the fire department. And we know OC Fire does a good job, obviously. But like Laz said, it appears that there is a lack of urgency because we don't see those first responders. I mean, you know, people get stuck in an elevator, fire department's right there to get them out. And here we have what appears to be dozens of people stuck on this ride and have been so for more than 2 hours. So obviously the fire department's aware, and as Sam mentioned, they're sending a battalion chief who I suppose will supervise the situation. But again, at what point do you have to say, it's time to bring in the ladders, time to bring in the trucks, get these folks off this ride and do so safely?
I wonder if any of them want to call us and talk to us about their experience on the ride.
Yeah, nicely played, Sam.
Well, you see the kids waving at each other. I mean, hopefully there's no serious injury here, that people are just holding on until they can, you know, get off the ride safely.
Yeah.
But also keep in mind, a
okay.
number of the people we're seeing are just wearing t-shirts, and at this point the temperature must be getting down into the 60s
Casey,
or lower.
what's the temp in Buena Park right now?
So I would think that there's a chilliness there, and that alone should be alarming for officials, because, you know, I'm not saying these people are in danger of hypothermia, but it's going to be darn cold right there. And again, we're about an hour away from sunset.
Looks like it's about 62 degrees outside right now, and it's going to drop down into the high 50s later tonight in Buena Park. So certainly don't want those folks out there suspended in the air, out in the elements for much longer. I'm surprised it has been going on this long. You know,
In the same vein of liability, I'm sure they don't want to move too quickly and do something that could endanger these people. So
sure.
I'm not going to be quick to judge the staff over at Knott's, but if Orange County Fire Authority has the faith of, they think that Knott's can handle it. So
sure.
They also keep changing the position of those guide ropes, which indicates that they don't quite have a handle yet on anchoring and securing the thing. And I don't think they're going to be able to proceed with the cherry picking until they've achieved that, and they don't look like they're quite close to that yet.
Yeah, it looks like they're just trying to get the ride back down to where people get on and off the ride anyway. That way they can safely take the shoulder straps off, people can walk off the ride, hopefully they're not injured and are able to do that. I want to know how it stopped. Were they moving really quickly and then it came to a screeching halt? Were they able to slow it down? Because then you're thinking, oh, injury, whiplash,
Right there.
some sort of situation. But they seem to be in good spirits, at least the kiddos are, and they're dangling their feet, waving at each other.
What else do you have to do?
What else can you do? Other than call KTLA, maybe if you can reach your phone and let us know what you're thinking up there. Hey, somebody, see, that guy's texting. Somebody reach out to him. We saw people on the Citizen app posting videos of this about 2.5 hours ago. So you really feel for these people sitting up there for 2 hours, 20 minutes at this point.
Yeah.
Getting antsy.
We know OC Fire is on scene, in fact, just around the corner, but again, as Laz mentioned, just appears to be a lack of urgency when it comes to what you would otherwise expect would be a 911 response. But again, the crews on the ground there that work for Knott's Berry are clearly trying to do what they can to stabilize this machine, stabilize this ride, and hopefully get those people down safely. And you can just see them working that winch, and it looks like they're using those cables to stabilize things. Gil, do we see fire department anywhere if you pull out just a little bit? Do we see if they are standing by? Do we have ambulances on standby? Anything at all?
No, we were trying to look into where the fire department usually stages for events here, but we so far haven't been able to spot any fire trucks that are on station. It looks like it's just the workers out at Knott's here. And, you know, it's surprising to watch these guys manually move the ride slowly but surely using those winches there. But it is starting to move over its spot there. You can see how it's turning and starting to come down. That's good news. But you'd think maybe they would have a faster way, maybe a motorized way to bring those lines in. But so far, slowly but surely, it's coming over.
It's telling that the cherry picker is now out of the equation, meaning the entire rescue now centers on bringing the apparatus back down so it's parallel to the ground, and then people can unload in the proper manner, as if the ride was over. So that seems to be the clear plan at this point, but it's so slow. And there is a race against time because of darkness and cold and all the rest, but it seems as though they're no longer even going to try to do the cherry picking at this point, and now they have to maneuver this thing into a safer position. It seems like, though, that judging from the speed we're going at, they're minutes, if not a half hour or more, away from trying to get that down there. It's a very slow and laborious process, and clearly also labor intensive, as we're seeing, as muscle people get up there and start cranking as hard as they can to get this thing down.
And if people did need to be offloaded, you would imagine that it would in fact be the fire department to do so. They are the experienced rescuers, and no doubt that you might have some folks at Knott's Berry who could assist them with a cherry picker or whatever else, but you want the fire department, those guys who know how to carry out these types of potentially difficult rescues with people stuck in the air like that. But looks like they're bringing it down slowly.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's some sort of electrical or technical problem where they can't get this down by the push of a button, and they're using a crank and their biceps to get this massive ride back to the point where it would be when people would load on and off the ride. Also, Sarah Welch just texted and said she was there with her family this weekend, and they went on the roller coasters, but that one looked too scary for the 8-year-old.
Well, at least nobody is on their sides anymore. So that's a big step in the right direction. People are once again in a seated position with their heads upright, and that's obviously very good from a healthcare point of view. And so now it's just a matter of getting this thing back into position, and now that it's closer to the ground, it's easier for us to see, okay, that's the plan, and they're getting slowly closer to getting it into the unloading position so that everyone simultaneously can have the shoulder bars lifted and step off, at which point the lawyers will swarm upon them.
Exactly. No doubt there's going to be folks from Knott's Berry there trying to quell their concerns, and perhaps a crush of attorneys waiting outside.
Gil, how many were on the ride? 22 people?
You know, I counted 22, but there was one arm that I couldn't.
Oh, I believe Gil was saying there was one arm he couldn't see. Again, this is the Soul Spin ride. Oh no, we lost right when they were getting off the ride. Okay, Soul Spin ride, 360 degrees. Each arm rotates on its own, so that's why so many people were facing different directions when this thing stopped.
And we'll check back in with Gil when we get our pictures back. And Gil, okay?
I mean, this is a day these kids are going to talk about for the rest of their lives. Remember that time we were on the news because that ride got stuck? You just hope that everyone's okay. And I think we were mentioning, you know, let's hope there wasn't some dramatic halt to this fast spinning ride when something malfunctioned. Hopefully it came to a slow stop, and then 2.5 hours later, they'll be able to walk off the ride. Laz
earlier mentioned the liability aspect of all of this. And, you know, I love going to an amusement park, and I like to take scary rides. I like the bigger, the faster, the better as far as I'm concerned. But I'd certainly be upset if I were stuck up there for so long.
But you know, the beauty of a theme park is the artificial danger that is created. And that's where the adrenaline rush comes from, is the sense of danger, even when, presumably, there is none. And this is an example of what happens when you cross that line and the danger becomes very real. Now, I want to give complete points to Knotts for slowly but surely getting this thing back down into position, because as we've been watching, yes, they've managed to get this thing back down into a situation where these people look like they are safe now, and that's obviously the #1 priority in a situation like this.
Sure.
But I've also been sitting here thinking, what would it take to get me to not join a lawsuit in a situation like this? Would it be a weekend pass, a week pass, a
funnel
month
cake
pass?
with boysenberry sauce.
Very easy.
The
Yeah.
fried chicken and some gravy and mashed potatoes.
I'm thinking it would take a month's pass to get me to say, okay, let bygones be bygones.
Oh, I don't know.
A month?
A month?
Oh
That's
no,
it?
I'm
Really?
getting a year pass.
I was going to say, what value do you place on this potential danger and certainly inconvenience?
Right, but there's the presumption that you're going to want to come back.
Yes. Knott's Merry Farm is fantastic.
Right.
It can be.
The Boysenberry Festival.
Sure.
But this certainly doesn't make me want to go on the rides, perhaps. I don't know.
Yeah.
Or in general, not just Knott's. This is any risk at any theme park. When you get on a ride, something can happen. Look,
Certainly can.
we've all been on safer rides that got stuck. I mean, it just happens. It happens at these theme parks. Something happens. The little green light in the ride turns red, and you know you're getting stuck for a while.
Yeah, well, then there's that line from Jurassic Park. At least when Pirates of the Caribbean goes down, the pirates don't eat the guests.
That's right.
Well, the Soul Spin looks like it's finally getting a little closer to the onboarding and offloading position here at Knott's Berry Farm. These 22 passengers have been stuck for nearly 2.5 hours, 6 feet in the air, some of them on their sides. Oh yeah, 6 stories, excuse me, on their sides. Each arm of this ride rotating 360 degrees. I want to know if they were at the end of the ride. Did this happen right when they went up the ride? Did they at least get to experience it? You know what I'm saying? Like, did they get to have a little fun before this thing malfunctioned?
A little fun. The thing spins around. You couldn't pay me to do that.
Just teacups for lads, is that right?
Oh man, I'm a certified weenie when it comes to this kind of thing.
Oh, look, it looks like there's
Feet on the ground.
There
This
we
is
go.
Touchdown.
great. This is fantastic. Now they're like, okay, let's go.
It's like the ending to Apollo 13.
We're doing the potty dance for some of these guys down there. They're like, let's
I
go.
was going to say, escort them straight to the restroom.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Oh my, did they clap? I feel like when we land on airplanes, clap questionable. But in this situation, round of applause.
Indeed, standing over. Why are these people still in the chairs? That's what I don't
I
understand.
really think they can't get the things up.
That's a thing.
They can't
Yeah.
get the shoulder restraint up.
That's definitely a thing.
Oh man.
And there we go. Okay.
Hey!
Oh,
He's out. They're out of here.
they're out of here. Oh, man.
Oh,
It'll be
man.
interesting to see
There's a
who
lot of backs being stretched out right now.
Kids.
got a cramp. Yeah, seriously.
Oh my goodness.
Cramp
Oh,
in the Charlie
their
horse.
parents.
Yeah.
Off we go. Let's go do the roller coaster, Dad.
Oh my God.
Interesting to see who intercepts them as they come off the ride there. Okay.
A reporter, probably.
A reporter and an attorney. Wow, good for them. Any jumping around, clapping, tears of joy, or just resignation to what just happened?
I mean, everyone looks to be walking off, though, so it
boy.
doesn't look like anyone was hurt. That's good.
Yeah, no,
Yes.
it doesn't look like anybody was hurt. They got this thing down. It was a slow process, as we've been reporting here. It took about a little over 2 hours and 15 minutes to get it down. And at that time, some of those folks suspended 6 stories in the air, sometimes hanging sideways. But they used those cables and what looked like a winch and manually pulled the Soul Spin ride slowly down to get these people off. And this gentleman here is being put in a wheelchair, but he did walk off the ride. No indication at this time that anyone was injured or that there's any sort of medical emergency. Certainly, though, people uncomfortable from being suspended in the air for so long here at Knott's Berry Farm.
Yeah, and the rider regulations for this ride say that as long as you're able to maintain an upright seated position, if you have some sort of physical limitation, as long as you have help getting on and off the ride, they do permit people to get on the ride itself. Oh, here we see another passenger getting put in a wheelchair.
Maybe a little lightheaded after all that.
Yeah.
Sure, you can imagine.
Especially if you're, on your side for 2.5 hours.
Interestingly, we don't see any paramedics. We don't see ambulance officials. We see some security. We see park workers.
Sure.
But again, that speaks to that seeming lack of urgency that surrounds this thing. I mean, I'm not saying this is an emergency per se, but you'd think you'd be seeing more medical assistance at this point.
And some of these folks are being helped off the ride right now and being put into wheelchairs. Again, this could just be because they're in pain from being suspended in the air for so long. But clearly, some people do need some assistance. The park does have EMTs on site, but again, we're not seeing anybody. We're not seeing anyone. At least
that looks
it
like
does not.
an EMT right there. taking
Correct.
her off.
That does not look like the OC fire patch, though, if I'm not mistaken. But nonetheless, some of these people do need assistance getting off this ride after being suspended in the air for more than 2 hours.
And that guy, did you see with his sweatshirt? He was just pointing out, like maybe from having those arms like
Right.
so tightly on you. And think, if you're to the side and you're stuck on that thing for 2 hours,
Painful.
I mean, bruising maybe.
Also, there would be some lightheadedness, and for a number of people, myself included, because I'm prone to motion sickness, that's the kind of thing that would be the most uncomfortable.
Sure. And we're staying with this shot right here of the folks who needed some assistance. They are being wheeled, would presume, to a first aid station, or perhaps OC fire paramedics who are standing by. But again, it does not appear that anyone suffered any serious injuries. This ride finally brought to the ground safely by workers at